Hey friends, Nerdy Pastor back, and wanted to do a little preview of something I'm going to be doing this summer. I'm doing a number of courses online for seminary right now, and essentially trying to do some equivalency work with the hopes of applying successfully to a doctorate of ministry program early next year, and kind of having to fly through more books than I really want to read each month, but it's getting me kind of excited to try something a little bit more in depth with my book review series, which I've been doing for quite a while now. And typically, I keep the book reviews to about 10 to 15 minutes or something like that. But I thought it would be fun to take that a little further moving forward. So we're gonna give it my best shot. I'm really busy. But I think I can do it. I know myself. I think I can do it if I really get disciplined this summer, which I think I will be. But I'd like to start doing a more in-depth, I'm going to call it the in-depth book review series, where I go into kind of bigger tomes of work, specifically important works on systematic theology or biblical theology or commentaries. And probably commentaries later on into the fall. But I'm thinking for the summer, we'll start with some traditional Reformed systematics and go in a little bit more in depth and make it more of a 25 or 30-minute review for those of you that really want to get more into depth. I know it won't be really the more mainstream kind of popular thing to do, but I really don't care. I really care more about what might be helpful. And I think what would be helpful for me is to go a little bit more in depth into some of those, compare and contrast, and give some highlights of those things, and then just give some reflection. Would love to hear some comments and feedback from you all if you're interested on things like that too, to see how systematic theology is really always crucial to the church's health, because it always focuses on the unicity of the Bible. The Bible is one story, it is one canon, and systematic theology is a natural production of that. So when there's a lack of systematic theology and just a lot of biblical and practical things like that, there's something wrong. And so it should always be kind of the queen, as they say, of the sciences, and also the way that we estimate in many ways is our reading in the scriptures distilled appropriately in a systematic theology. And then, of course, we always want to evaluate the systematic theology with the scriptures. So there's always this kind of biblical theology and exegetical theology that comes out and produces healthy systematic theology, but yet always systematic theology is informing how someone interprets the Bible. So it's this wonderful cyclical analogy of faith, as the reformers like to say, with scripture interpreting scripture. It's also Bible being interpreted by theology, theology being interpreted by the Bible. So I think we can extend that analogy a little further there, that all exegetical biblical theology should lead to good systematic theology, and all systematic theology should return and rest into good exegesis of the Bible. So what I thought we would try this summer is maybe 2 or 3 larger volumes of systematics and for these in-depth book studies or book reviews. And I thought I would try starting out an intro volume, and then maybe 2. Actually, I don't have the other one here with me, unfortunately, but I'll just mention it to talk about the strengths and the weaknesses. Might be a little more than I'm able to handle, but we'll see how I can do here. But the first one I'd like to do is an in-depth review on Cornelius Van Til's introduction to systematic theology, the prolegomena that he has. And this is kind of a fascinating version of intro, given that there's about, I think it's 6 chapters of stuff that's not introductory. So it's not prolegomena. So the second half has to do with the attributes of God, talks about also the Trinity. And so it'll be a little bit of the doctrine of God as well. I mean, it says it in the title there, Scripture and God. But it also has prolegomena and revelation scripture, which is more traditional, to diving into the work of systematics. But it does have the doctrine of God in there as well, which would be kind of a fascinating kind of intro. So I think I'm going to try to do this one as a deep dive, and Van Til is historically very difficult to interpret. There are whole groups of folks that spend their time trying to both interpret correctly and to correct those who misinterpret, and also trying to distill him in a way that is understandable and useful as he is to the church today. Another one that I'm just really enjoying a lot here is Charles Hodge's Systematic Theology. And I think what I'll try to do is the one I'm working through primarily right now is his second volume on anthropology, so sin and salvation. So I think I'm going to do this one primarily for those of you. For those of you, actually, it's not sin and salvation. It is sin in Christ. I think it's the person of Christ, and it goes into his hypostatic union and, of course, his offices. So it's going to talk a little bit more about that, the person of Christ, I think. But that's the second volume. I might do that one as well. And then I'd like to maybe do, if I have the ability to squeeze it all in there, which I probably will not, but goals is to also do R.L. Dabney's 900-tome Systematic Theology as well. But I've read almost all of that already. So I'll think just going through that and thinking through it as a way to do a deeper, kind of deep dive, in-depth book review might be fun to talk through R.L. Dabney's Systematic Theology, which is it's pretty dense, pretty complex stuff, but always one of my favorites to return to. So try Van Til, intro, try one of the volumes of Charles Hodge, or volume 2, and then see if we can get in either R.L. Dabney or, depends on how much time I have, Louis Berkhof's older, this is the 90s production. There's an older one, there's many older ones as well, not the brand new one, but Berkhof's volume as well here is very, very good. That might be good to review also. So in-depth book reviews, systematic theology primarily would be good, I think, along with some very important biblical theology studies, maybe in the fall, or a commentary or two here as well. But I think I'm going to try that this summer. So kind of a preview here of some in-depth book reviews for our summer. Signing off.